The acrid stench of burning rubber and twisted metal clawed at Marcus Hale's throat as he skidded his beat-up pickup truck to a halt on the rain-slicked interstate. It was just past midnight, the kind of hour when the world felt too heavy for one man to carry alone. Headlights pierced the downpour like accusatory fingers, illuminating the nightmare unfolding 50 yards ahead, a sleek black Mercedes, once a symbol of untouchable power, now a crumpled inferno. Flames danced hungrily along its undercarriage, licking toward the fuel tank with a hiss that sounded like the devil's whisper. Inside, trapped behind shattered glass and a buckled door, a woman pounded weakly on the window, her face a pale blur of desperation, her screams drowned by the roar of the blaze. Marcus didn't think. He never did in moments like these. At 42, with calloused hands that had scrubbed 1,000 floors and a heart scarred by loss, instinct was his only armor. He leaped from the cab, his janitor's coveralls, stained with the bleach of another late shift, snagging on the door handle. "Hold on," he bellowed, voice raw from years of quiet pleas to a god who seemed to have forgotten his address. The heat slammed into him like a freight train as he reached the wreck, shards of glass slicing his palms as he yanked at the mangled door. It wouldn't budge. The woman's eyes met his through the flames, wide, frantic, the eyes of someone who'd built an empire but never learned to beg. With a guttural roar that echoed his daughter's bedtime stories of superheroes, Marcus wedged his shoulder into the gap, muscles forged from hauling trash bins and wrestling a rambunctious 8-year-old into pajamas straining against the steel. The door groaned, then gave way with a metallic screech. Smoke billowed out, choking him, but he plunged in, wrapping one arm around her waist and hauling her limp form free just as the first explosion ripped through the cabin. They tumbled to the wet asphalt 10 feet away, the world erupting in a fireball that singed his eyebrows and painted the night orange. Sirens wailed in the distance, too late, always too late. Gasping, Marcus propped himself on an elbow, his vision swimming from the smoke and the gash across his forehead. The woman, mid-40s, sharp features softened by soot and shock, coughed violently beside him, her designer suit torn and smoldering. He reached out, instinctive, to check her pulse. "Ma'am? You okay? Say something. She stirred, her manicured hand clutching at the air as if grasping for a lifeline that wasn't there. Her eyes fluttered open, locking onto him with a clarity that cut through the haze. For a heartbeat, the rain pattered softly on their skin, the fire crackling like applause. Marcus braced for the words every rescuer dreams of in the dead of night, "Thank you." Instead, her voice emerged, hoarse and edged with ice, "My briefcase." "Did you get my briefcase?" Marcus blinked, the world tilting. "Not are you hurt? Or who are you? Just the goddamn briefcase." He glanced back at the inferno, where embers swirled like lost souls, and felt a hollow laugh bubble up in his chest. But he swallowed it. "No, ma'am. It was too hot. You almost didn't make it." She pushed herself up, wincing, her gaze darting to the flames as if weighing the loss. Everything was in there. The contracts. The drive. God, the drive. Her voice cracked, not on gratitude but on the ledger of her empire crumbling to ash. Paramedics swarmed them then, bundling her onto a stretcher while Marcus waved them off, insisting he was fine. "Just a scratch," he lied, ignoring the blood trickling into his eye. As they loaded her into the ambulance, she didn't look back. Marcus stood there in the rain, watching the taillights fade, the weight of the night settling on his shoulders like an old, unwelcome friend. Marcus Hale's life was a tapestry of quiet battles, woven thread by thread in the dim corridors of Whitaker Tower, a gleaming skyscraper in downtown Seattle that housed the Voss Corporation, the tech giant that powered half the city's smart homes and all of its regrets. By day, or more accurately, by night, he was the invisible force that kept the marble floors spotless and the executive suites smelling of lemon polish. Janitor. The word tasted like defeat on his tongue, but it paid the bills, $18 an hour for mopping up coffee spills from overworked interns and emptying trash bins overflowing with shredded dreams. It hadn't always been this way. 5 years ago, Marcus had been a line supervisor at a logging mill upstate, his hands rough from chainsaws instead of sponges, his laughter easy around campfires with his wife, Lena. She was the spark in his world, fiery red hair, a laugh that could chase storms away, and eyes that saw the hero in a man who fixed leaky faucets with duct tape and hope. They had Sophie, their miracle girl, born premature but fierce, with Lena's curls and Marcus's stubborn chin. Life was a gravel road, bumpy but theirs. Then the mill accident. A snapped cable, a felled tree, and Lena was gone in an instant, crushed under timber that Marcus had inspected himself that morning. Guilt became his shadow, whispering that he'd failed her, that he'd fail Sophie too. The insurance payout barely covered the funeral, the rest vanished into medical bills when Sophie's lungs, weakened by her early birth, rebelled against the grief-stricken air. Now, at 8, she battled chronic asthma, her tiny chest a battlefield of wheezes and inhalers. Marcus fought back with everything he had, double shifts, ramen dinners disguised as noodle adventures, and bedtime tales of ordinary men who saved the day without capes. That rainy night on the interstate, Marcus had been driving home from Whitaker Tower, his mind replaying Sophie's school play rehearsal. She'd landed the role of the brave little engine, chugging through tunnels of doubt. "Daddy, I pulled the train out of the snowstorm," she'd beamed over FaceTime, her voice a lifeline in the fluorescent-lit void of his shift. He'd promised to be there for the performance in 2 weeks, no matter what. As he merged onto I-5, the Mercedes had cut him off like he was yesterday's news, tail lights flashing arrogance before veering into a guardrail at 80 miles per hour. Physics did the rest. By morning, Marcus was back at work, a butterfly bandage over his gash and his coveralls swapped for a fresh set courtesy of the lost and found. The cut on his palm throbbed under his glove, a reminder of the woman's weight in his arms, but he pushed it down. Heroes didn't get days off, single dads got hazard pay in the form of ignored aches. He started on the 47th floor, Boss Corp's executive suite, where floor-to-ceiling windows framed a city that sparkled like it cared. Elena Voss's corner office was his Everest, always the last stop, pristine as a museum, cold as a vault. Elena Voss. The name alone evoked boardrooms and billions. At 45, she was Whitaker Tower's crown jewel, CEO of Voss Corp, innovator of the VossLink AI that turned homes into obedient servants. Her rise was legend, orphan turned Oxford scholar, bootstrapped from a garage startup to a Fortune 500 titan. The press called her the Ice Queen of Silicon North, her interviews clipped and calculated, her smile a weapon sharper than any algorithm. But Marcus knew her only as the ghost in the glass, a woman who left half-eaten kale salads and empty espresso cups, her desk a fortress of screens and spreadsheets. He'd overheard the whispers, divorced twice, no kids, a penthouse that echoed like a tomb. Relatable? Hardly. She was the 1% he polished for. 2 days after the crash, as Marcus buffed the lobby brass, the revolving doors spat out a whirlwind. Elena Voss, pale but impeccable in a tailored pantsuit, flanked by a phalanx of suits clutching iPads like shields. She moved like she'd conquered the fire itself, her stride devouring the marble. Marcus froze mid-swipe, mop handle slick in his grip. Their eyes met across the expanse, hers narrowing in vague recognition, his widening in disbelief. She was alive. Walking. Breathing fire of her own. She didn't stop. Didn't nod. Just swept past, her entourage trailing eddies of cologne and urgency. But as the elevator dinged shut, a PA hurried back, thrusting a nondescript envelope into Marcus's hand. "Ms. Voss's compliments," the man muttered, eyes flicking to his watch. Inside was a check, $5,000, and a typed note, "For your assistance on the evening of the 12th, Voss Corp appreciates discretion." Ev. Assistance. Discretion. Marcus stared at the paper, the ink blurring as anger coiled in his gut. $5,000 for dragging a stranger from death's jaws? It was more than a month's rent, sure, enough to cover Sophie's next nebulizer refill and a real Christmas tree. But it felt like hush money, a band-aid on a bullet wound. He crumpled it, shoving it into his pocket. Gratitude? That was for fairy tales. That night, Sophie wheezed through dinner, her small frame curled on the threadbare couch of their one-bedroom apartment. The place smelled of instant noodles and lavender from the diffuser Marcus had splurged on, Lena's favorite scent. Daddy,